Running out of food in the Middle East? Food security, and the challenges of the Arab Spring. The role of agriculture to enhance food security, promote economic growth, and alleviate poverty.
First of all, I wish to express my thanks and gratitude to Professor Eckhart for inviting me here, and for Professor Bernard Haeckel, who arranged and support me arriving here. It's a really great honor. All my life, I started as a businessman, and somewhere in the 2002, I started to go back into the academic world and start to do some writing and to do my master. I did my master in Saudi Arabia, and then I did my doctorate in Liverpool, and I'm really hoping to go back and within 3-4 years to retire, and then I will be concentrate more on my theory. How could agriculture be used as a tool to alleviate poverty and promote economic growth? I don't know how many of you knows about Saudi Arabia and if there is poverty exists in Saudi Arabia. Maybe most of you think Saudi Arabia is billions of dollars and all rich and they have all billions. Wait for the end of the train and then we'll reach something. Food shortage in 2007, 2008, the prices went so high and it raised a lot of questions. For the last 20 years, the price of food and commodity was going down, down, down. To go into the university to study agriculture, you must be dumb. To invest in agriculture, you must be crazy because price of commodity just keep going down and down. The prices of finished products, like 1 kilo of macaroni, the price went up so much, but the prices of the raw materials kept going down. Arab countries are exposed very heavily into import. They import between 50 to 90% of their food import. And please, I know 50 to 90% is a big gap, and I'm talking in Princeton here. But gentlemen, ladies, those are the figures that we got. They are not reliable, they're old, and sometimes we patch it up. So 50 to 90% of their calories are imported. Many people for the last few years, especially after 2011, they talk about terrorism, they talk about crisis, they talk about many problems in the world. Very few talk about food and food securities. Poverty and unemployment is the most motivating factors for the Arab revolutions. We can see that in Tunis, we can see that in Egypt and many other parts of the world. I think one of the writers, Gustav Le Bon, said what he meant is when a big event happened, you never could pinpoint it to one thing or one reason. It's a multi-dimension problem. Running out of food in the Middle East, food security and the challenge of the Arab revolutions. I have summarized my whole topics in one picture. You have fruit, you have tree, and you have roots. And in order to achieve the root, which is to reduce the food gap, improve the standard of living, conserve and maintenance of the natural resources, wealth distribution, promote economic growth, you need to have all this on the ground, which is water optimization program, improve investment opportunity, good governance and transparency, establish information center, use technology to the best you can. Government cannot monitor this, so you have to depend on NGO and civil societies. Establish insurance, because if you don't do that, most people, they will move from the city, from the villages and the rural countries to the cities. And when they move to the cities, that's the biggest problem. And that's what increases your poverties. This is what we're talking about here, is how much or how many the hungry peoples are in the world. Managing food securities. How could we manage it? Well, through progressive policies, and we must create a safety net, family planning, and promote education. So the whole topics here, how could we use agriculture as a tool to make sure you sit in your villages and in your urban area to have a better education and to have a better housing, not to move into big cities. We should have also take benefits of what the market provides by reducing the market volatilities, food processing, that is, invest some of in the food processing, that is not farmer only just produce raw material, you should help them into add value. And we must use technology. Technology is the key issues, and do environmental friendly. How do we do that? How do we do that? Saudi Arabia is a very limited on water. Water is very scarce. Sorry for my language. It's very limited. We have a lot of oil, but we don't have water. And water is a major problem. So what can you do? You must build on technologies. We have 3.5% growth of populations. Saudi Arabia went from one extreme to another extreme. They went from self-sufficiency, 100% of self-sufficiency, into abandoning the entire programs of agriculture. Just to talk about it, water is a big problem. It is a big problem. Those center pivots required 1,500 gallons per minute. That is 6,000 liters per minute. A normal human being, it will take him 1 month to use 1 minute of that usage of the center pivots. As we can see here in Texas and Oklahoma, it's dropped as much as 100 feet. Agriculture is the major water consumer worldwide. 72% of globals of the water available, it goes into irrigation. In a developing country, the irrigation goes 90%. Saudi Arabia, as you could see here, it's 87.5%. And this is one of the main limiting factors to do any development in Saudi Arabia, is water scarcity. How could we get of this water? How do we do that? Well, we have to reduce the agricultural subsidies. And we use the ultimate modern technologies for the usage of the water. There got to be an overall plan for the whole water system. And there is a crops per drops. It's not how many tons per hectare these pivots will produce. We don't need that. What we need is how much one drop of water will produce how many kilograms. So the new trend, we should think of it, is every drop of water, how much crops it will give you. Then Saudi Arabia has its challenges. Soaring food prices, urban population growth, rural depopulations, high unemployment, environmental degradation, and water scarcity. Those are the walls. We must get over it. Saudi Arabia got to meet the challenges. How do we do that? How could we get a sustainable measurement and security food supply? Well, firstly, we have to get strategic reserve. We have to build that. We have to have basic food commodities, such as wheat and rice. We have to identify countries to invest in, which is countries that is Saudi Arabia have an initiative that we will go invest. And we'll go through those countries one by one. And then we have to explore way of acquiring land. Land is a major issue. Ownership is a major issue. Maybe you think of it here in the US is a major, not a major issue of buying land. But I was last year in a conference where there was all dignitaries and presidents of Africa. And, they were all blaming the West and blaming the others for not giving them money. And when we mentioned the word of the title of the land, things just got to be very hot on their own. And one of the presidents of the country said, when we discuss the land issues and the land ownership, it's like we open a can of a 10,000 devils. And improve the local production by adopting the new technology, and we must agree with the hosting country on facilities given to the Saudi investor. Saudi Arabia is sitting in $500 billion today. $500 billion. Could anybody tell me how far is New York from Washington from here? 250 kilos, 300 miles. So it's 500 kilos. If you take this $500 billion, it's 500 kilos if you put it on a paved road from both sides, from here to Washington, D.C., back and forth. All your paved road is with dollars. So it's a big amount of money. So if they're going to invest in agriculture, they have to know exactly where to invest it in. These are the commodities that Saudi Arabia require. We require 3 million tons of wheat. We require 1 million tons of rice. We require 6 million tons of barley. That is 45% of the trade barleys in the world. That's huge. We almost take 50% of what's available to the whole world on barley. Animal feed, we produce 3 million and we require 14 million tons a year. This is the list of the country which has been identified by the Saudi government. This country we should invest in, or let's say not should invest in, are available to us to invest in. The top 3, Sudan, Egypt, Ethiopia. The bottom 3, Mozambique, Thailand, and Ghana. And as you could see, with all my apologies, but it went down, the US is number 14. What is the aim? The aim is to encourage the Saudi investor to utilize their resource and experience abroad. This is the requirement for the countries to invest in. It must have a natural resource, it must be stable, it must be transparent, it must be friendly relation with Saudi Arabia, tax relations, relaxation, free market, and political, social, and economic stabilities. There is advantage, there is a disadvantage of this investment. The advantage, poverty reduction and domestic benefits. The disadvantage, land degradations and forced migrations of the peoples who live there and trade ban. You always will be subject for a trade ban, and that's what is one of the risks you are going to take. We're giving here Russia, Ukraine, India, and Argentina. When they have a problem with the food, they basically banned exports. Challenges of Saudi agriculture investment abroad. Well, is it a problem? Yes, it's a huge problem. Do we have to do it? Yes, we have to do it. How are we going to do it? I don't know. But it's really, we have to do it. Investment law is not clear, so it's very risky. We have people said, well, we'll influence hosting country. Problem that is, you could You could put all this investment with the private sector, and they don't sell it to you. They go sell it to the higher market, and they will walk out of your agreements. Risk of terminating the contract. The country could say, we will not export your products. Transparency, the legal transparency is not there, but we have to do that. It's a problem. We have to keep addressing it until we achieve a solution. How could we really achieve this? Fair transparency, broader, we have to ensure the stakeholders. We cannot just go to a prime minister and we pay him money under the table and we said, okay, let's get the land. It just doesn't work because this prime minister are not going to last long. So you have to get involved the stakeholders. You have to provide clear and visible benefit to the local communities. Law. What law are we talking about? Are we talking about the domestic law? Are we talking about the international investment contract direct between countries to countries? Or are we talking about the international investment agreement? Unfortunately, all this law is not being tested yet. There is not a single case yet, which is somebody we have invested in, and there is a problem with, and then we went to court. So we don't have a case in our hand for it. These are the food initiative at the table of the United Nations now. Saudi Arabia is one of them, but as you could see, and if you just imagine the world map there, and that's really the last one here is the US, and then over there the Far East. So these are the initiative exists today. This is some of the Saudi economic indicators. I will not go through it much, but as you could see, you could pick up the number you would like to see. And these are the figures. There is a misleading here, which is a GDP, which is everybody read these numbers. And for me, this number doesn't mean nothing really. If your income is $1 a year, and my income is $1 million a year, so is our GDP is $500,000 a year? So we have to look at a more really fair way to calculate these numbers. Now we go to post-Arab Revolution. I understand in Princeton is they are more interested in the political aspects of it. If we look at this really revolution, and I'm not telling you that I know all the answer, or I have all the figures. But what I'm telling you here is I will give you the information and the views of somebody locally from Saudi Arabia. So it could be different, it could be right, could be wrong, we don't know. It's for you to judge and it's for you to find out. During the recent period of globalization, some country went up, some country went down. Let's look at the Middle East. The Middle East from 1980 to 2004 only grew 6.4%. That is just 0.5% annually. In fact, some country went down. And what are the population of the Arab world? The Arab world stood at 150 million people in 1980. It will reach 400 million in 2015. China, with 1 billion people, they got 9%. Now, eruptions of the Arab Revolution. Most Arabs, I'm not going to say all, but I will say most Arabs here, they have been denied both their human rights, their citizen rights, their political, their social, all kinds of depressed, you could think of it, they have it. Corruption, unequal opportunities. Somebody are fabulously rich and somebody are, or most are poor. I was so happy, made my life easier when I came to the US. Now people, the figures of the US, it's 15%, the poverties. 1% of the population have a lot, and 99% in the US have very little. So it made my life a lot easier that I tried to explain it. Yes, very much. I enjoy iPhone, and most of you do. Apple have $77 billion in their reserve. But at the end of the day, those company, how many plates does it provide for families. So I'm not going to sound here like a socialist, but at the end of the day, you got to think of the 99%. In the UK, I have asked hundreds of people, why did a good family, well-educated, they just go and they burn the street? Somebody said they're bored, somebody they said they're poor. We don't know what's the answer. But when people have riots in the UK, and not only from the poor, from a very well-educated family's kids, they just go burn things up. Why? Arab Revolution challenges. If government of the Arab world want political stability and social peace, they have to open their economy. They have to open their society. Not talk about it. We all talk about peace. We all talk about distribution. But what are we actually doing? Are we doing something about it? Or are we just taking the back seat and let events take position? And when things happen, we do everything we can to get back into the normal track, so get back as things as before. Social expenditures at the moment in the Arab world, it's about 40 to 50% of their GDP. So the room for Arab government spending more in social expenditure is very minimum. Unfortunately, this 40% of their GDP, it goes to where? It goes to political favor, and it goes to salaries, and no, it doesn't go into any kind of improving the system, into some kind of research to improve that distributions. So we don't expect it. No matter what you hear in the newspaper, we're going to give more and more social expenditure. 40% to 50% of the GDP is gone. So the only way, you have to improve that 40 to 50%. Yes, it will take times for the Arab world for how to live together without an iron fist. We must allow political noise to rise to the surface, make all risk visible. If we talk about it, we're safe. If we don't talk about it, we're in a huge problem. Summarize it. Lack of investment in agriculture over decades. In Philippines, they haven't invested any money for 30 years. Pakistan, Saudi Arabia depend on their rice, all the rice for Saudi Arabia, for the Saudi, because don't forget, Saudi Arabia, we import two kinds of rice. The white rice, which is basically goes to 8 million foreigners in Saudi Arabia. Most of them are from the east, Far East, so they eat white rice. Saudi eat basmati rice, which is the yellow rice, and that usually comes from the Punjab. The Punjabi have not invested a single dollar for the last 30 years. Agriculture needs billions. Lack of investment has been identified. Agriculture investment should not be rejected in principle, although there are risks for the host developing country. There is a lot of risk, but it's well worth to take. Simply, we don't have the choice. Recommendation. Saudi Arabia have 5 to 8 billion cubic meters renewable water. That is your budget. That's what you live in. We should not invest any crops that take more water than that, and adopt the crops per drops. Encourage the use of new technology, GMO, situational agriculture. We must have every region in Saudi Arabia must have its own agriculture strategies, clear agriculture development strategy, a multifunction purpose on the sustainable triple bottom line, society, economy, and environment. What's my recommendation? My recommendation is, firstly, we create a public company between Saudis and, let's say, Sudanese government, and it will be a joint stock companies. Flexible law, the local settler, you cannot just get people who live there for thousands of years and just said, hey, move out, we're going to give this land to a new investor, and I promise you, it's going to be very beautiful. True, very beautiful. But what's going to happen to me? Where are you going to relocate me? Somebody got to involve them in that decision. Stakeholders. Saudi government should create long-term contract with Saudi investors. Provide them with cheap finance. So we should have, whoever invests, we should have some percentage of that. Saudi government should act as a facilitator, protectors between the Saudi investor and the host country. We should have a full access to all investment and regulation and about those target countries, which is we covered. My conclusion, food security is a political aspect of agriculture development. Food security is not only about food, but it's all about security, chronic hunger, threaten individual governments, societies, and borders. How many of you believe these figures? 3 million people in Saudi Arabia live under the poverty line. Did anybody know about this number before? It's true. This is not my figure. This is published. It's an annual report of the Saudi Ministry of Social Affairs, stated that 3 million residents of the country of Saudi Arabia below the poverty line. Let's look at the other side of the coin. We have, according to Merrill Lynch, we have 113,000 high net worth individual. What is a high net worth individuals? Anybody who has $1 million in his bank accounts, paper money they call it, not include your real estate or your real estate investment, paper money. $1 million, you're a high net individual. If you have, it's range between 20 to 25 to $35 million, you are ultra high net worth individual. Unfortunately, this number is going 8% a year. Thank you very much.
It's growing by 8% a year?
Yeah, that 113,000 is grow 8% a year. Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching our video. It's presented by Dr. Turki Faisal Al Rasheed. He is an adjunct professor at the University of Arizona, College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, Department of Biosystems Engineering. He is the author of Agricultural Development Strategies, The Saudi Experience. For more information, please visit www.tfrasheed.org or visit our social channels.